Welcome everyone to the IBM Virtual Industry Excursion hosted by the Griffith Industry Mentoring Program. My name is Nicole Graham and I look after the Griffith Industry Mentoring Program along with my colleague Breda Crowley, and we are delighted to welcome you here. We have an incredible lineup of presenters and we are so grateful to have the support of IBM in sharing their expertise with the students that we have online with us this morning. So let's jump in. Before we start, I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of country, taking a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, and understanding that today we are online, and so we're all meeting in from different places and different spaces, but wherever we are, we're on Aboriginal land. So let's pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So just a bit of housekeeping. This session is being recorded. You will find that you can access your microphone and you can access your camera. So students, you received an email in advance of this session, which reminded you to, if you were asking questions of our presenters, to preferably do that on camera today. Question time will be available after every presentation, and please contact us at the Industry Mentoring Program email address if you have any follow-up questions, and we can connect you with the relevant presenter. So just a quick look at our agenda. You will see that it is jam-packed and we have a tremendous amount of expertise coming at you within a very short period of time. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce our moderator. So our moderator today is Narayana Madaneni, and Narayana is an advisory software engineer, a master inventor, and a developer advocate. He is passionate about innovation, lifelong learning, mutual mentoring, and contributing to STEM at schools. Narayana, we know him because he is a valued mentor within the Griffith Industry Mentoring Program. Through his work in the program, many students have reached their professional development and their career goals, and we're really grateful to the contribution that he's made, not only to the students that he's mentored, but in facilitating this learning opportunity for Griffith students. So Narayana, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you so much, Nicole and Breda, for organizing this. My apologies for my apartment's fire testing that's going on. So you might hear some music and noises. But in an ideal world, we would have organized this as a lab event where the students can come and have a chat with the engineers in our lab at Gold Coast, and that would have been a good experience for the students. Because of COVID restrictions that we have, we are still in the process of returning to work. So in the interest of safety, we thought the best way would be to have an virtual industry excursion. And today we are very delighted and welcome everyone to our lab, and I hope you'll have great interactions with IBMers that are participating in this. I would like to firstly thank Nicole and Breda for organizing this event, and my colleagues. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
So we have got around 8 speakers today. The first one is Chris Hawkins. Chris is an industry thought leader in the cybersecurity space. And he started as a software engineer in an Australian founded startup called Dascom. And then he has transitioned many roles and eventually became a CTO. He's also a master inventor and has been contributing to the patent portfolio of IBM. He regularly presents at conferences and writes technical articles for the community. He's a great mentor and culture coach. I'm not sure if he has joined yet.
I'm here, Narayana.
Chris, okay. I will hand it over to Chris now. I'll probably introduce, I think we have some of the speakers, right? So I might as well introduce some of them now.
Yes, we have some of the speakers, Narayana.
Yeah.
Would you like me to call out who we have?
Okay, I have got Scott on the screen. So
We have Christopher, Holly, Prainab, Scott on the screen here so far.
Yep. So Scott Andrews is a cloud security architect. He specializes in digital trust, cyber fraud, and risk mitigation. And he's well recognized within the IBM community as well as the security community as an architect with excellent communication skills. And he is able to articulate the essential things for architecture very well. And he's a strong believer of the T, which is about the breadth and depth of technology. So you need to be an expert in one particular field at least and have to know knowledge across many fields. And he's also a volunteer lifeguard at the Surf Life Saving Club. So welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
And I think we have Pranab. Pranab has been with IBM for over 20, not with IBM, but in the industry for over 20 years. And he has been involved in a variety of diverse areas, from firmware development for telecom protocols to high availability middleware to LDAP application development. He has a wide range of experience. He's very interested in performing outreach activities, helping mentees, and he loves dabbling in cutting edge cloud-based security products. And he's currently with QRock, which is QRadar on cloud, and he's leading the DevOps team in the Gold Coast lab. He is also actively patenting. So he likes to patent and come up with innovative ideas. And then we have Holly. Hi, Pranab. So just say hi for us.
Hello, guys.
Thank you, Pranab. And we have Holly. She started as a graduate with IBM, and she's from a mechatronics background, but she's like versatile and she has got many awards, and she has been part of the threat hunting and network anomaly detection team. She's very active and she leads, and she's a good example of women in tech who are very passionate about what they do. And welcome, Holly.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
I might stop sharing and give it back to Chris Hawkins for his talk.
Hey, Narayana, thanks very much. So I do have a slide, but I'm not sure I'm going to share it. I'm just going to talk a little bit, and thanks for sharing a little bit of the, a structure as well, Narayana, as to what you folks want to hear about. I mean, where does the story start? I mean, I was a university graduate in '97, unbelievably, and then joined a small company. Had many opportunities at larger ones, but the ability to stay where I lived, which was, on the Gold Coast, and work for a startup, was attractive but kind of new at the time. Most people left university and went and worked for large national or multinational companies in software. And we got, luckily enough, 2 years later, we got acquired by IBM. And since then, it's been an incredible journey, really. I was able to, move from software engineering to a lot of client-facing critical situations where, I was the only one really in the room internationally that could fix problems that clients were facing, serious problems for internet access because of issues in deployment or defects, or in today's world, you'd be talking about systems that have been hacked or crypto locked, or and that's where security has kind of evolved to. So yeah, I went and delivered projects. I helped design certain elements of our product portfolio, and then yeah, IBM gave me a tremendous opportunity to travel. I've traveled to hundreds of different international locations, and and thousands of domestic flights. And each week now I'm back on the road and traveling to 2 to 3 cities a week. I'm actually at home at the moment, which is nice. You know, I guess when I look at my role, cybersecurity, I mean, software engineering is a critical role for all companies today. I mean, the world has changed so much that, you know, every person on this call could actually work for any type of company. Engineering is just a core requirement of digital transformation, in delighting your customers, engaging them, and doing that in an efficient manner at scale, at high profit as well. So enormous opportunity in software. On the security side, I mean, you can't go a day without seeing, you know, national headlines, and it could be and global headlines. I mean, attackers are everywhere. So we're victims in Australia. You know, attackers have advantage in that they can operate at scale. They're not impeded by processes or rules, and so exposed internet and, you know, internal systems are under constant attack by criminals, organized crime, you know, script kids, but less likely these days, but more nation state activity as well. And that's why the government is starting to get involved. When, you know, the government's job is to protect us, put in place mechanisms to provide protection. And we see it on the roads, we see it in medical, we see all sorts of areas where they invest time and energy, and cybersecurity has become the hottest area and probably the most invested area for government over the last few years, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I think most people on this call went through a period on the internet which was open and free, unconstrained, and, you know, we're kind of left with what we have today, and there needs to be a whole lot of rules put in place to help govern so that you know, put some impediments in front of the attackers so that we can get on with our lives and be healthy and happy as well. So, you know, I guess my job is to make that real for our customers, and those customers will be government, major clients, ultimately driving solutions that deliver profit, bottom line revenue and profit for IBM in the security market. But, you know, of course, to deliver to the pain points that our clients face, and that could be, you know, they're paying too much money for alternate ways of protecting themselves. They might be looking at security, and you'll hear some examples here that will help delight customers, maybe around authentication and defrauding. Saving the money from stopping the attackers helps them, you know, remove fraud risk as well. So really, my main message is to go to see clients, to drive opportunities for our sales team to work through, to delight clients over time, and yeah, make sure we've got a healthy business. I lead all of the technical folks in security in Australia, all the client-facing folks. So we've got a business of about 220 people. I set the technical strategy for the brand, and my technical team delivers delights the customers with demos, value assessments, you know, and contributes to the sellers trying to get opportunities through the system. How did I choose this role? Well, I mean, there are other people on this call that are good communicators, but the role kind of chooses yourself. If you work for a company where there's so many options, eventually you find a really nice balance and a need in the organization that can accommodate, you know, your passion and those skills. So I'm kind of a unique person in that I've got the technical background, which I built up over, you know, a significant amount of time, and I'm able to communicate in a way that resonates. I turn complexity into more simple language, and yeah, I'm on the side whereby I'm making a difference to both the business and Australians in general. So it kind of chose me. Currently working on projects all over the place. You'll be doing banking, you'll be engaging with the government through systems that my team helps to design and execute, backed by technology, built by Australians, as you'll hear today. What are the challenges I face? We all want to do good things in this industry, in security, and we've got an enormous amount to give as a multinational US-based company. Just getting that message through to Australian organisations can sometimes, and IBM is undergoing a massive transformation itself. So some of that, I just want to go and build stuff and implement it at the customer, but you can't always do that without, getting the customer to buy it in and find the resources they need to implement. And what is your advice for people pursuing this role? Well, I don't think you'd pursue this role as a first choice. But what advice I would give people is, I've been working for unbelievably 23 years. I found a place that I really enjoy my job. I think that's the most important thing. And you enjoy being successful is about enjoying what you're doing. You can't be successful if you don't like what you're doing. So make sure, and usually you like doing the things that you're good at because you want to invest the time because you're passionate about it. So I would just advise that you don't have to, don't try to fit yourself into a hole, square peg and round hole. The industry is enormously broad. I work with people who are in marketing, in sales, in technical sales roles, support. Then I've got engineering, the folks on this call. It takes all sorts with all skills and diversity of thought and opinion, and we are heavily geared towards certain types of people, and I would just encourage you not to look at technical skills as the only way that you can get in the IT industry, because there's an enormous amount of work that needs to be done with clients in positions of influence that would leverage skills that you have that you may not be prioritizing right now. So I would just find what you like to do, continue to invest in those things that you're passionate about, and then find that role if you can. If you can join a larger company, it always helps because you can we're always looking at people who have growth potential, who may not be in the right role. How do we move them into a role that's better for them? So there are really good HR processes that help us find the right niche for people. Some people may not see that stuff, but definitely behind the scenes, we're trying to make people successful. So that's probably my summary. And please just connect with me on LinkedIn, ping me. I always respond. And if there's anything you want to know, just let me know. I know there's some questions. Is there questions here? What do we got here?
I think the question is around how relevant do you see Internet of Things within the technology sector and the possibilities of employment in a company like IBM?
IoT is massive. Edge computing is massive. So I kind of put those two things together. Distributed computing, IoTs have enormous threat potential. We've seen that with vulnerabilities in devices that are kind of owned and used. So IoT and robotics, automation included with that. Physical OT environments is a huge area in Australia. Our robotics in mining, oil and gas is a massive area. So good place to be investing time and energy, in my opinion, because it's kind of disconnected to the IT, which we're trying to bring together. And some of the national security agenda items is making sure that when we do, we don't, allow hackers to take down, water grids and things like that. Second question, how did previous jobs roles impact what you do as a CTO? What experience do you recommend those? You've got to have depth of knowledge and then breadth. So depth first, followed by breadth. You can't be in a role like mine without having a strong foundation of engineering software practices. I understand computers better than anyone I speak to in most cases because I've built products. I've been around people like this on the call that build products, and you can't pretend to know that you how to build stuff. So spending a decade in, I mean, it sounds like a long time, but spending 10 years up front to then get 25 years of enormous upside is how you would do it. And along that journey, make sure you're investing in communication skills, because that's ultimately, if you can't describe what you're doing in ways that people understand, then you won't make it. You won't make that next. You won't find it easy to make that next transition. So don't devalue the soft skills, but focus on depth if you can for the early parts of your career. Mentoring, all those things. So. Are there any tips you can give us that employees overlook that enable us to be promoted faster? Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I would if there's one other thing I would tell you is you need to be a lifelong learner. We hear this as a buzzword thing, but learning requires listening. If someone's telling you something that they think you should do, you should listen and then try to do it. And the quicker you can make that adjustment, the faster you move forward, right? So it's like a threat situation. If you can respond to an attack quicker, you can reduce the cost of a data breach. Same way, if you can get to the point where you're taking feedback and practicing and getting that feedback loop and continuing to improve, then you will move ahead of everybody else. I can guarantee it, because most people don't listen. They sit back and say, "Oh, okay, I'll take it on board." They just shelve it. But if you can always take on feedback and apply it quickly, you will accelerate your learning no end. So that's about finding the right people too. You don't take feedback from everyone. You don't have to, but find your mentors, the people you trust, and yeah. That's the piece of advice I'd give you there. No more questions? I don't know how. Do I have do you have a bell or something?
Yeah, I think one last one, if you can. Are there any forensics work involved to actually track down the cyber criminals who intruded, or is that more a job for police?
There's kind of a crossover. I mean,
yeah,
evidence gathering is definitely something people do. Threat hunting is something people do because they don't want to know the people, they just want to know the motives. So if you know the motives, you can then start to defend easier. So I would, and then, you know, obviously policing takes over from there. Startup or big international companies take whatever opportunity you can get. I mean, IBM might be big, but it's also got a lot of options, right? So it's each to their own, but I'll leave it there. Thanks, Narayana.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chocks. Thanks, Chris. And I'll just summarize what you said for the benefit of the audience here. I think Chris went through his journey with IBM and spoke about the serious problems that he resolved with respect to clients and delivering projects, and the advantages that attackers have when compared to defenders. Attackers don't have rules, or they don't have to follow some ethical rules or compliance, and it's easy. And the government is trying to protect, and cybersecurity is currently the hottest and most invested in terms of government funding. And generally roles choose you rather than you choosing a role. And he spoke about being diverse and investing in things that you're good at, and consider the wide range of roles and where you fit in based on your skill set. Thank you, Chris, again for your valuable time that you have given us today. With that, we'll move on to the next speaker. Next, we have Anthony Ferguson. Sorry if I have pronounced it wrong, but Tony is currently working in IBM as a product release development and employee manager. He has been with IBM for more than 18 years now and manages a large team. And has to manage different time zones as well. And he's passionate about supporting his teams and the products they develop so that everyone can grow and succeed together. With that introduction, Tony, it's over to you.
Hey, thanks, Narayana. I'm going to try and share my screen, guys, because I do have a presentation. Let me know if you can see this. Actually, I'm not going to be able to share, guys. So I'll just do what Chris did, and I'll just talk to a conversation. So thank you very much, guys, for allowing me to present to the group. So as Narayana basically said, my role in IBM is of a software and release development manager, and I also play a key role of HR/employee management as well. Narayana, you can hear me okay, right? Perfect. Yep. Just want to double check. So my role, basically, I'm primarily responsible is for the delivery of products. I have responsibilities in both on-premise and as well as cloud offerings at the moment. So it's quite an interesting space that we've been in as we've gone through a bit of a transformation. What do I do on a day-to-day basis is I work directly with the development team members to understand the current project risks to ensure that the project can be delivered successfully. That's actually probably one of my primary requirements, simply because we need to make commitments to the business, and we need to deliver on those commitments to make sure that we are driving feature functionality that our sales teams can actually sell to our customer base. One of the other things on a day-to-day basis that I assist to unblock any of the team members if they aren't able to make progress. As a manager, having people that are blocked and unable to do their job, that's one of the key requirements for us, is to actually make sure that they can fulfill their responsibilities. So that's one of the requirements. I also work with the product owners to ensure that the project plans are aligned and we are delivering on what is expected. That's actually one of the challenges that we will talk about a little bit later. There is a lot of change in these agile environments as we become more and more agile into software development. So it's definitely an area that takes up a lot of time during the day-to-day business. I also work very closely with the upper management teams to make sure that we are clearly articulating and setting expectations in regards to how the projects are tracking. One of the keys that, as you work in any large organization, that you want to take away is information is critical. The people around you are not there to hinder you in any way. They're actually there to support you. So you need to be very honest and very open in regards to the project statuses so that they can provide the support around you. So if you as a group or as a team become blocked, they can provide assistance where they need that as well. As we move on to why did I choose this role? It's very interesting. Chris and I started fairly closely in regards to the roles, our careers within IBM. Like Narayana said, I started probably about 18 years ago now. When I started, I actually started out in all places, a very deep technical role in a cryptography team. So to have gone from probably as deep technical as you possibly can all the way up to a management role or a project management role kind of thing, it has been very interesting. Now, why did I choose the role? Again, similar to what Chris said, it wasn't really a choice. I made decisions during that journey of getting here, but it was really just an evolution of career progression. To go on to one of the questions was how do you get promoted in companies? One of the things that you do want to look for is opportunity and ownership when you're going forward. So as you start to build out your career, you want to understand what you want to do long-term wise, and then you want to find opportunities and take ownership of those, because then you'll gradually grow and transform your career. So like I said, I went from a very deep technical role all the way up now to a management role. I also identified that I could add more value by working with others than I could doing myself. And I think a lot of managers get into that situation where you start to realize that, I can work with others to add much more value than I can contribute myself. And again, that was one of the reasons that I chose the role that I'm currently in. What are the projects that I'm working on? I'm actually very lucky at the moment. A lot of the teams here I work directly with. So I have three main areas that I sort of focus on. At the moment, we work around identity and access management, in particular, IBM Security Verify Access and IBM Application Gateway. Both of these products are used worldwide. Like Narayana said, I have a worldwide commitment and customer base, so they work very diversely across the world. And we have, they sit in front of major banks around the world and insurance industries and telecommunication industries. So it's quite an interesting area to support our customer base. One of the new innovative areas and exciting areas is that we've transformed our traditional on-premise identity and access management business from on-prem to more of a SaaS offering or a software as a service. And in that, I work primarily around the risk and adaptive access, which is a very, very innovative space and very, very key to the success of the platform. I also work a little bit with Pranava around threat management on the IBM Curator on cloud, but that's more of a HR perspective and just supporting the team to make sure that they have the support around them if they need that. What challenges do I face on a day-to-day basis? One of the major challenges in my role is constant change within the projects. This can include both requirements and strategic direction, as well as people needs. As a development release manager, you do need to be fairly versatile in regards to allocating people to tasks and tasks to people, because it does constantly change. Also, one of the challenges is balancing the expected workloads between all the team members. As you move into business, you will find that businesses expect a lot. As a manager, it's our role to make sure that we do balance that and we do support our team members to make sure that there's not a level of burnout and all that sort of stuff. And I truly do believe as a HR/development manager that that's a primary requirement to make sure that we do get that balance right. Additionally, I have multiple reporting chains. Particularly when you work for a large business organization such as, or an enterprise business like IBM, you do have multiple masters. That's inevitably going to happen across different things as you take more ownership across different projects. One of the challenges that you have to be making sure that you're able to balance all those expectations, and that can be fairly challenging at times when they don't talk to each other and know what's happening. And then the final challenge on a day-to-day basis that I have is what I would classify as email overload. You get an extreme amount of email coming through the pipeline, which is part of the business. Anyone in the business gets a lot of email, but you do spend quite a lot of time in my role making sure communications are clear and expectations are set as well. And then finally, if you were to pursue a role as a release development or a HR employee manager, very similar line to Chris's conversation. I do think you do need to start out technical. A good solid foundation of technical conversations does mean that you can have conversations with your team and you can actually understand what's being discussed in the group and actually have an opinion. I know at times, you have very, very strong technical people around you, but at least to be able to have opinion and actually say something within the conversation will show value to the group that you are invested in the discussion as well. That said, you also want to learn the business side of the software development. There are aspects of delivery, export regulations, there's a lot of moving parts when you do start to deliver beyond, borders and into different countries. So it's a very interesting space to understand. There's a lot of legalities that you need to understand to allow you to do that. So if you have a passion about software as well as the business side of business, this could be a good role for you, because you do need to understand and have strong understanding about those aspects as well. I also said here, become a people person. Primarily, as a manager, your success as a manager is the success of the people around you. So if you struggle to work with people or you struggle to influence people, management may be a bit of a challenging role for you. So really work on, and again, I think Chris kind of erred on this and said, soft skills are just as important as technical skills. It's definitely, when you move into a management role, it's definitely needed for the soft skills as well. And then my final point, guys, here is that become an agile, a champion of the agile methodology. Using agile, it can be a little bit challenging at times. So if you become a champion of that, you'll be able to strongly influence your development teams and the product release cycles into more of an agile methodology, which I think every business is moving towards. Narayana, that's my presentation for today.
Thank you very much, Tony. And anyone has got any questions?
No problems about the slides. I can get them across.
While we wait for questions, I might summarize what Tony has spoken about. So Tony's role is mainly involved with finding risks associated with delivery and unblocking team members, like removing any blocking items, as well as committing on timelines, delivering on timelines. And he has transitioned from a deep technical role into a management and business side of things. And it requires ability to delegate things to the right people. And he has also contributed towards moving identity from an on-premise environment into a SaaS-based model. And the challenges are around constant changes in requirements and balancing people needs with business needs, and also around balancing workload across teams, multi teams that are located across geographies. And an important aspect is avoiding team burnout, and there is a lot of people management involved. You'll have to keep your team happy and help them with their success. And some challenges are you need to look at a lot of emails and have to be fast, have good conversational skills, and also provide your opinion. Understanding business side and regulations is also a crucial part of a manager's role. And his suggestion for you is to become an agile champion, understand agile.
Miranda, there's a couple of questions there. Is your development team located in different time zones? How do you manage this with agile methodology? It's actually quite an interesting question. The groups that I work with are very broad in regards to the scope. So we have development team in the US, in Australia, Singapore, India, Israel, and up into the European zones as well up there. So yes, that is extremely challenging, working pretty well a worldwide team. How do we manage that? The best way to manage that is to make sure that you're using common tooling is the key to your project management tools. Within an agile environment, it's all about communication. And when I say communication, it's making sure that people understands what's needed, when it's expected, and using those tools to facilitate that communication is key. So I hope that answered that question. What is an everyday challenge you face? That's an interesting one. Everyday challenges, like I sort of said, I think one of the challenges that we do get a lot of email in regards to that. Like I spend probably the first 1 to 2 hours a day just making sure that I understand what emails I need to go back to for on a day-to-day basis. And I do find that very challenging to make sure that, again, you're going back to everything that you need to make sure that, again, the communication is clear about all across the different projects. Leading up to graduation, what steps would you recommend to take in order to secure a position with the technology sector? Look, I've coming from a technical background, and this is just my opinion. The more hands-on experience you have when you start to talk about interviews and lots of stuff, and as a student myself many years ago, I was a tinkerer. I love to study, but I love to tinker more. Get your hands on some software, start playing with some open source, really start actually developing software that might be out there that you can use an example. I truly believe that when I went through my interview at IBM, a lot of the work that we talked about during that was non-university specific. The university gives you that foundation of knowledge. But then when I started talking about, hey, this is the other stuff that I've talked about, this sort of server and this implementation, they found that very enticing to sort of make me part of the team. In dealing with people, is it something that you can learn? There's both aspects of that, actually, to be honest. You definitely can learn how to work with people. There's no doubt that you can learn that. It's a skill that you can learn just like any other skill, but it also is a practiced skill. You will find that over the time as a leader or as an employee, sorry, going from an employee or a peer as a leader and then into management, you will make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes in how they approach situations, but it is a learned skill when it comes to working and dealing with people. What I would say, again, it goes back to one of the comments that Chris actually said, is learning to listen is probably one of the most key foundational things. You need to be listening to the person and not just listen, but actually understand what they're asking. Okay. I've got to stop, guys. All right. Thanks, Narayana.
Thank you, Tony. That was a great talk on people who are interested in management kind of the business or roles that suit them. Our next speaker I have already introduced to you, Scott Andrews, and it's good that he's in the office so he can just turn around his laptop and show us a bit of the office and probably start a session. Thanks.
No dramas. Hey guys, how are we all? Going to put a comment in the comments field to say good. Yeah, I'm seeing some thumbs up. That's great. Great. Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so COVID's been a very, very interesting time over the last, 12 months. And it's pretty much 12 months since most of our team has been in an office environment. So for someone like myself that's worked in an open plan office for the last 20 years of my career with IBM, having to work from home by myself, literally by myself every day at home has been an interesting challenge. And I think that goes well to some resiliency and some in some of the concepts that I'll talk about in a moment. So behind me, can't show you too much because there's sections of the lab that I'm not supposed to show you, but we have a pod style of system. So we've got groups of desks together, which are designed to encourage collaboration. So we're sitting opposite and within a small team. So if we need to work on some collaborative items in sort of an agile fashion, it's literally just, hey, Aman, hey, what did you, or actually be the other way around. Aman would be asking me, hey, Scott, what did you do today? And so we get that interpersonal communication from a very formal team perspective, but we also get it informally as you would do after a sprint. So anyone that's covered any agile topics in their studies so far, you'll have your sprints, you'll have your daily scrums, and then out of the scrums, we can have those free conversations. So the environment here is built specifically to help enable that style of agile. And yeah, it's good to be back in the office. So let me crack into it. One of the things, I'm just going to share my screen and make sure I give you the right one. That one. And okay. Whoops. So again, I'm going to ask for some confirmation. There we go. So if I can grab a thumbs up that you can see the right screen with the with the slide deck. So one of the other things that you might see in the background is the development environment or developer tool. So we've all got desks. They've all got these magic little buttons that can make the desk go up and down without me having to do much with it. And also good development setup where we've got multiple screens to help us look at code, look at samples, all that sort of things. And I just wanted to make sure I had the right one. So from day to day, I'm an IT security architect, as Narendra mentioned, and a scenario owner. There's always going to be a lot of crossover between different roles, different skills, different technologies. Sometimes it's very easy to give them a name where we all do much the same thing. So you heard Chris talk about the CTO role, Tony talk about the management role. We all have an element of client engagement there. We'll have an element of talking with people that we're doing our work for. There's always an element of working within teams. So that's going to be common across the board. And that's where some of these soft skills are exceptionally important. I'm also a scenario owner. And later on, Holly's going to talk to us about being a product owner. They're very, very similar roles, but they're different, how would I say this? Different evolutions in timeline of delivery. So instead of a delivery that might last 6 or 12 months, a scenario owner might only be 2 or 3 months. It might only be a week. But all of those skills generally tend to reflect on the individual and their ability to what motivates them, what drives them, and also what they're good at. One of the things that I've learned in doing my role is that sometimes it's good to challenge the status quo. So instead of following the structure that Narendra had sent out for us in terms of which order should I be presenting in, I generally run out of time because Chris has gone over or Tony's gone over. So I've changed mine around to give you what I think are my best words of advice. So if you don't take anything out of today from me, other than this one slide, this is what I'm going to suggest. So number one is always put yourself in the client's shoes. You know, we're building stuff, we're developing stuff for someone. Who's it for? Well, it's actually the people that are going to use it. And you've probably all got a bunch of free apps on your mobile devices or free apps on your laptops and stuff like that. In this freemium culture, everybody's very, very quick to criticize. So you need to ask yourself, if I wasn't paying for this, am I going to go on a rant of how terrible it is and then pick someone else's? Or conversely, if I had to pay for this, would I be happy in paying for this? And so that quality mindset and how easy is it to use, how fit for purposes it is, that should be in the back of your mind all of the time. At university, it's very easy to understand that we're writing an assignment or an essay against a set of specifications that are coming from our lecturer or from our tutor. But at the end of the day, when we map that to the real world, it's our clients. They're the ones that we're doing this work for. Second of all, take pride in your work, and especially attention to detail. It's a big thing for me. Even if you're never going to be acknowledged for that quality of work that you've done, it's really, really important to take pride in what you're doing, because if you do that, you're going to have better outcomes. And then finally, playing nice with others. You might very well be the smartest person that you know, but I can probably guarantee you that you aren't the smartest person in the room, even though you might think you may be. Teams will always be able to deliver more than an individual. So it's really, really important that you work well within a team. That doesn't mean that you have to be a leader. That doesn't mean that you have to be a follower. It just means that understanding and respecting in teams that there's a high performance culture. Together we can produce more. Everybody has their roles and responsibilities. We want to make sure that we can trust in our peers and colleagues that they're going to get it done. They might not necessarily do it precisely the way that you would have done it. And that's a challenge for me often. And for Scrum Masters and things like that. Sometimes we expect it to be done a certain way, but is it fit for purpose and does it fit the overall bigger picture? That's realistically, at the end of the day, the most thing that's important about that. Because if we get all those bits together, we've played well with everyone else, we've gotten the components and the modules built, they all work, we've taken pride in it, so we've got the quality. Ultimately, we're going to end up with a great offering for our clients, and then we're going to give them that wow factor. So a little bit more formal, just generally around what architects do. Anyone that's in the software development industry or software engineering industry probably cops a little bit of slack from their civil engineer or their mechanical or electrical engineer colleagues saying that you're not real engineers, you're not building something. And I like to ask the question, well, okay, you've got this massive piece of plant of equipment like a case machine or something like that. Who built all the software that goes and controls everything inside of that? And then it's not until you propose it to people like that that they understand what it is. So a security architect or an architect generally, you can probably just take what you understand about a normal architect and put it into the context of software and then put it into context of security. So it's understanding how all of the bits and pieces fit together. So strong communication and presentation skills. We're working with clients, but we're working with people and teams. Ability to lead large groups and be a primary facilitator. So there's a little bit of leadership and that sort of stuff. Comfortable in working project-based, working with clients, a whole range of those. I mean, you can read those when the recording comes out. But that's a good way that we make a formal structure so people get some ideas of what are the skills and competencies that they're going to need. You did hear Chris talk about breadth and depth. So that's what we would refer to as the T model. So as you're starting out in your career, you do need to get to an element of the subject matter expertise or very, very deep technical in a particular subject domain or area. And that can probably be something that you're interested in. And it's always good to have one or two of those at least. As you evolve and as you understand your broader impact, what can you deliver to everybody else? That's where we come to the top part of the T, and that's where we get the breadth. So we need to understand, especially as a security architect, how one component might interact with another component over here. There's no necessarily direct link between the two of them, other than that solution across the top. So often I find myself presented with a problem on a Monday morning when I come to work. Something went wrong in production over the weekend and people are pointing fingers at who it is. It's very easy to think that my code is designed and it's working the way it's supposed to do. But at the end of the day, our client still had an issue. So we need to figure out why that issue occurred and how we can stop it from happening again, even if we are working to our specification or working to our own working as designed, works on my machine style of mentality. So the way that I like to think of a security architect or a scenario owner is first of all,
1 minute, Scott, just reminding. Last 1 minute.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I told you this is going to happen. That's why I put the other pieces first. So laying out all the pieces, understanding what you've got to work with, orchestrate the solution. So this is bringing all those pieces together, understanding the strengths of yourself, but also those of your team. And then finally you deliver it. And then once you get that packaged delivery, that packaged product, hopefully on time, on budget, high quality, all the rest of those things, then you've really succeeded in your role. Didn't have to build all these pieces myself because I have much smarter people in the team that are able to do that, but I am able to help bring them together and then ultimately end up with something successful like that. So I'm just going to go to the last one. Why did I choose this particular role? I'm actually going to say the same thing as everyone else. I didn't choose it. It chose me. The way that I like to collect information, understand puzzles, I guess you'd call them, and then put them together. And then using feedback from my manager. So Tony, who you just heard from, is my manager, him encouraging me to go down that path. And then people like Chris, who have then mentored me down that path. So you can see the evolution as we work our way through. So thank you.
Yeah, I might just quickly summarize while we wait for questions. Scott spoke about the office space and the agile environment in which we normally do our work. It's an open-based environment. And he spoke about challenging the status quo and also doing role playing as the client. So that would help you understand the client's needs better. Take pride in your work, mingle with the team, understand, respect, and complement each other. Even if it is not the way you want it to be done, be flexible with that as long as it serves the higher purpose. And also improve your presentation skills and think about different components in a system and how they interact with each other.
So just one question then, Nerea. I will just answer the second part of that one. How important is cloud security in upcoming days? It's absolutely imperative. You can't think of things as a perimeter around them anymore. They're now in cloud. They're literally just running on someone else's computer. But instead of the days where I had my Bastion firewall and now everything's in my own domain and I'm good to control it, we need to think about where their data is their data sovereignty? So is it allowed to go offshore? How do I access that securely between where it's stored and where I am? How much data do I actually have to move? Is it feasible to access it in the amount of time that I need to add performance or to add that experience? So security is pivotal, and it still amazes me, especially in the graduate interviews. So there was a question earlier about interviews and things overlooked and otherwise. The fundamentals of IT security are all around still today: cryptography, public private key encryption, keys, the rest of it. The number of people that struggle with that concept is alarming because it's so critical to our industry. Have I got time to answer a couple of these, Nerea, or should I just type them as we go? Oh, good, awesome. Talk more about what do you mean you are a case owner or a scenario owner. Those sort of things are things that pop up that aren't normal. So in terms of a case, it may be that, as I mentioned, I come to work on a Monday morning, something's gone wrong over the weekend. No one is going to assign that to an individual to go, you're responsible for figuring this out. The service management teams, the support teams, they'll own them, but they don't really have the authority, the ownership, or the power to say, hey, Scott, can you go and figure out what went wrong and stop it from happening again? So taking pride in work, attention to detail, understanding that, and then having the foresight to keep that going until you come to a resolution. So we don't leave our clients hanging with something that they don't know how to resolve. So scenario owner, like a product owner, like a product manager, but instead of offering a product like that Lego box that you saw, a scenario owner is more about, we want to deliver this wow feature to a particular client. They need it to do this thing on top of everything else we already do. Your role is to make that thing, that scenario, that business purpose, that whatever, a reality in today, using all of the bits and pieces that you've already got, plus anything new that you need to bring in, put those all together, and then that's how we deliver the scenario. So it's very easy to deliver business requirements, and it's very easy to write a specification. It's a little bit harder to deliver a scenario. which is ultimately what people are going to use, or what they're taking products and how they're going to be used.
Thanks a lot, Scott. We are very happy to have you. And
I'll type some more questions. I'll type some more answers as we're going through.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And our next speaker is Aman Chopra. He is a Scrum Master and team lead of Cloud Identity Adaptive Access. He's an experienced software developer and has experience in multiple domains and technologies. He's very passionate about embedded systems and likes to pursue it in his free time, and he's good at Scrum. He has done some agile workshops as well. Aman, over to you.
Thanks, Narana. I hope everyone is able to hear me. Yep. Morning, everyone. I'm Aman. I have more than 13 years of IT experience, and I've worked across various domain and technologies. I started my career into embedded systems, worked for tier 1 telecommunication provider, and from last 7 years, I'm working with IBM. Currently, I'm working as a team lead and a Scrum Master for IBM Security Verify Adaptive Access project. And Adaptive Access, or A2, is an intelligent access management platform that combines advanced risk detection with the robust access policy engine that provides a frustration-free and a context-aware access, and that adapts throughout the user journey. So basically, in a nutshell, it makes sure that a user is able to access the cloud app and in a frictionless manner. So yeah, that's about my my project which I'm working. So today probably I'll be talking about my roles and responsibilities, challenges that are associated with my role. So before I start all those things, probably I'll start about who is Scrum Master. Scrum Master is basically the facilitator of Scrum, and Scrum Masters are responsible for work items management, reporting, stand-ups, planning, removal of blockers, retrospective, and providing agile coaching to the teams. And I told you that we are facilitators of Scrum. By Scrum, we mean Scrum are a set of tools, meetings, roles that allow a team to, organize and structure and manage their work. So that's a Scrum. And another important aspect of Agile is Sprint. Sprint is basically a time-boxed iteration. By time-boxed iteration, I mean that, we say that, within this specified time, we'll be doing these stuff. And by the end of every sprint or every cycle, we'll be delivering some stuff. So that's part of the agile work, and we are doing the continuous delivery. So that's small things about agile. And my everyday activity, involves asking 3 questions from my team members: what they did yesterday, what they plan to do today, and are they blocked on anything? And I have to make sure that everyone give their proper status, and they are all doing what we have committed for the sprint. And if anyone is blocked, I have to make sure that they get unblocked by providing them technical assistance, or if they're blocked on any resource, external team, I have to bring those teams together or those resources together so that they get unblocked and they can continue their work. And then I do provide my status that what I'm going to do for today. So that's my usually day-to-day activities. And I think now I'll talk about the challenges which I face with my role. I think every role has challenges, and Scrum Master is no exception. Probably, I think the major challenge which I have is, whenever I get the requirements from the management, so I have to make sure that, how do I prioritize them? How do I put them in the current sprint, or how do I plan them or put them into the next sprint? Secondly, I think making sure that, team members are not overloaded. When we do a planning, we don't want one person to be, 200% loaded and other to be 50% loaded. So we have to make out those balance. So that's the, challenge which I have to make sure. And thirdly, probably, if person are blocked, making sure, they get unblocked. I get everyone, I get every day, people coming to me and saying that, I'm blocked, so I need to assist them. Probably there's one more challenge, which I face during the end of sprint is, we have to get a green build and we have to go to production. So getting a green build is a challenge, coordinating amongst their test teams and, the development teams, and making sure that, all things get sorted out and we are all good to go to the production. So that's the 4, challenges which I face. The reason why I chose this role, I mean, as I said, that I'm working as a team lead for my project. So with the team lead, I have full access to the technical aspects of the project, but I don't have access to the managerial side. I don't know about anything, planning, estimates, what are the requirements that are being driven. So by choosing this role, I can see the managerial aspects of my of the product or of the offering. And again, if the opportunity comes up and I want to have a career growth, then that's the reason why I chose this things up. So yeah, I think that's that's about it. And probably now I think I've given you some background about the Scrum Master role and some of the Agile framework. So if if anyone likes to learn more about Agile or learn more about Scrum Master, then probably there are some resources available online, certifications available online. Primarily, I think if you go to Scrum Org, or Scrum Alliance, Atlassian certifications, I mean they are really good for Agile methodologies. And yep, I think that's about the Scrum Master stuff which I do every day. Thank you very much.
There are some questions in the chat. You might want to have a
Sure, let me
crack at it.
No, I don't see.
Okay, those are replies.
Yep. Those are the
Scott.
replies. Yep.
Okay, anyone has got any questions?
There's one there for you, Aman. The everyday challenge of a Scrum Master, other than me. What
Yep.
other challenges do you have?
So I think, as I already mentioned, that the main challenge is making sure things are working as per planned. You shouldn't be working on something which we have not committed for the sprint. So I have to carefully listen on everyone's status and making sure things are on track. So I think that's the first most important thing as a Scrum Master.
Okay, I would like to summarize what Aman said. So it's about Scrum Master role is mainly about facilitating the team through various meetings and educating them about the agile methodologies, and also plays an important role in continuous integration and deployment. And the Scrum Master also gets a chance to look at the business side of things, which is great about it, and he would know from the business standpoint. And Aman also spoke about the importance of certifications and what are available if you are interested. And there is a question from Madhuri.
Yep. So probably I think I'll answer them on the chat if that's okay.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Sure. No worries.
But you have time if you want to.
Okay, all good.
Yeah.
I thought we were running out of time, so that's it.
Now we
I
are.
think the question from Madhuri, like for the emergency things, like Agile is probably changes are inevitable. Changes come up every day. So if there's an emergency situation, we have to multitask. It's not that I'm now looking into emergency stuff and I won't do my regular stuff. Nah. So we have to balance out certain things. So you have to prioritize, and then you have to get, at the end of the day, you have to get both of the items done in one day. So yeah, you do things parallelly. And I think there was one more question from Tariq, what happens if a sprint took longer than planned? I think if the things, if things don't go as per, as per plan, then probably, we have a retrospective at the end of sprint where we see what didn't went well, and what's the plan on, so that these things don't repeat. So and based on the, what do you say, the answers of the retrospective, we try to improve on the next sprints. And yeah, it does happen that sometimes we have too much requirements, and or if we have wrongly sized the requirements, and they took hold of the sprint and they have spilled to another sprint. So that does happen. But again, yeah, we do a retrospective, and then based on the retrospectives thing, we then work or correct them in the next sprint. So there's one more question. What are the projects you are currently working on? So I've said that, I'm working on IBM Security Verify Adaptive Access project. It's a cloud offering, and we are basically, provide the authentication to the cloud, so that all the organization clouds applications, they are guarded and only the authorized users get access to the app.
Thanks a lot, Aman. That's very insightful. Probably we'll move on to the next session. So I think the next session is developer role, and it's me. So I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen okay? Okay. So I'm a developer. I'm a senior developer at IBM, and I work on a product which does the crypto and SSL API component, which is used for TLS connections and key management. So today I would like to share my thoughts around how do I become a better software developer. So the agenda is simple. We'll look at various responsibilities of a developer, the challenges that a developer faces on a daily basis, and some resources that you can look at and learn to become a better software developer. First of all, responsibilities. Like Scott and many others have mentioned, it's really important that we understand user needs. And users come in all different shapes and forms. So there could be different age groups, different gender, and different geography, and different diverse, and they can have a lot of differences. So you'll really have to find out who your user is before you even start developing. Same applies for clients. Again, when we say clients are again users that belong to a client. So the first and foremost thing that a developer has to think about is who will be using this product or capability. And that's when you start thinking how diverse or what particular features you'd like to add in this product. And a lot of other responsibilities are associated with project and task management. A developer would be involved in estimating and scoping various projects in terms of a feature, like how long would this take? How much time does it take to build this? And you need to plan your projects, manage your projects, and report your projects on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a quarterly basis or an yearly basis. So a lot of this involves communicating with your teammates, with your manager, with all the stakeholders that are involved with your project. And having good articulation skills really helps in being a great developer. And the next thing is a developer will be involved in generating a lot of artifacts. Artifacts they can be related to design or architecture. How do I design this particular product or component? And why I go with this design and not a different one. And also looking at what kind of architecture best suits the user needs. So you might come up with a small design document or a diagram or an UML diagram. It could be anything. It could be a scenario diagram. It could be a diagram that explains how components interact with each other. And that's a major part of a developer's role as well. So he has to come up with high-level designs or low-level designs and some diagrams, some documentation in terms of, it could be product documentation or user documentation. And the other artifacts are code, actual code. So developers are either working on prototyping new features or fixing bugs, or report any bugs that are reported during internal testing or external testing or in the production. So most of the time developer will be spending in performing these things. And then the other important aspect is collaborating with peers. So there is something called dynamic programming, and you have peer programming, rapid programming, and there are a number of different models. And peer programming is based on two people working on the same project. Each one will be reviewing each other's code, and reviews are really important, right? So what went wrong? So you need diversity of thought and their perspective to the problem. Why did you solve it in this way? I have been doing code reviews from quite some time, and we did find a lot of interesting bugs that could have been fixed, and reviews will help with that to identify the problem very fast. And then you have to ensure that the software is of the right quality. So you might want to run some unit testing, integration testing, performance and stress testing, ensure that the quality has not degraded, the performance has not degraded, and you are following the security guidelines as well. So in terms of, you might be running some analysis tools, some static analysis tools or dynamic tools as well. You might be looking for memory leaks and any corruption. So that's also an important aspect of software development. The challenges. So one challenge is with the project estimation errors. So often we might come up with an estimate and it might go under or over, or the scope keeps changing. So the solution for this would be to use your past experience of doing similar projects, and your estimates will provide you with guidance on how do you estimate. And also it's important to involve your peers and seniors. So generally when you do project estimation, the agile way is to do, each team member would, the actual team member who wants to do the project would explain the scope of this project or the work involved, and the rest of them will be giving some ballpark figures based on what they think should be the scope, and they come up with a common number. And speed versus quality, which one is important? I think both are important. While we are in this world of rapid product development, it's possible that there might be a number of software bugs that flow in, and that's why we hear about 0 days and vulnerabilities which can create exploits in your product. So it's always important to follow secure coding guidelines. As the Jiffy shows, it's really hard if you find a bug in production instead of finding it during development phase. It's very easy to fix any bugs that you find in development phase. The later you find it, so if you find it during your own unit testing, it's very fast to fix. And if you find it during your own internal, your own testing, which the quality engineer does a test, then it takes a bit of time. And if you find it in production, it takes quite a large amount of time, because you'll have to reproduce it. You'll have to find the actual bug, and you won't be able to reproduce it in-house if it's a complex production environment. And also in order to ensure quality, you might want to allocate enough time for peer review. And the golden rule in security products is do not refactor if not needed, because you don't know why the original code was developed by the original developer in that particular way. And so how do I become a better developer? So what I expect you to take away from this is, probably you all are working on your own assignments, and you're part of your, you have a schedule to follow, and you'll have to catch up with your classes and things like that. But out of that, you might want to form a team. Just try to find some like-minded people with whom you can collaborate. Just pick a programming language or something that you like, write a hello world program in it, and if you like it, and then you pick a problem or a hobby project that you'd like to solve, and try to architect and design the solution, start coding, and also see if you can find a mentor who's from the industry, or could be anyone, could be one of your faculty, and get your design reviewed, explain them why you came up with this design to this problem. And the other way is to attend webinars and try to stay updated ahead of what's currently in trend, and attend some meetups which are free to attend, and also compete in hackathons. Hackathons are a great way to learn quickly a lot of skills, including how do I manage to complete a given project within the timeline of 1 or 2 days. So hackathons are a great way to do that. So definitely compete in hackathons. And with IBM, we have got a website called developer.ibm.com, which has a number of code patterns and tutorials on a lot of trending topics like AI, analytics, blockchain, containers, and a lot of other things. Just pick a code pattern that you like and follow the steps, finish a project, so you'll get an exposure to how cloud works and what kinds of APIs are there and things like that. So I would strongly encourage you go through this. You don't have to go with developer.ibm.com. Every company has its own developer.apple.com or developer.somecompany.com. So just pick which ones you like. The takeaways I would like you to take with is, the first thing is be curious. Try to think like, how does the phone work? For example, you're making a call. How does WhatsApp work? So what happens internally? How do they encrypt data? How do they protect data? How does internet banking work? How does Facebook work? How does Google work? How does the search engine work? Think about the architecture behind it. How does it scale? So what if there are 1 million users tomorrow? Does it scale? What would need? And then start building your profile, start contributing to open source. Pick a project that you like and try to understand the code and contribute to it, and also build your network. So building your network is also really important. Connect to people in the industry which you like and you would like to become like one. So you'll get updates from them and you could learn a lot. And I'd also like to share with you a competition that's happening within IBM, which happens every year. It's called Call for Code. Last year, around 400,000 developers have been part of it. And it's an good opportunity for you to participate in this challenge. This year, there are 3 categories. One is clean water and sanitization. So if you can think of a good solution to one of these burning problems, you could change the world. And also, there are quite a few. There is an university challenge, and there are some prizes. And last year's challenge, there was one finalist from Australia. It was from University of Sydney. They did an business buddy, which helps local businesses for COVID related rules and what's happening with government. And they won around $25,000. I think you should all try and participate in this one. And with that, I end my session. I'm open for questions. Anyone has got any questions for me? So if a project was not delivered on time, is it your responsibility? I think it's everyone's responsibility, whoever is part of that project. So everyone has to be accounted for. What coding language would you suggest to focus on and how to become better at coding? I think it's practice, practice, and practice. There are quite a few, like you have got Lead Code, or there are many online tools you can practice. And personally, I work on C++, but you don't have to limit to one particular coding language. You could go with Java or JavaScript or full stack. You might want to learn SQL. Do you know any good resources to practice online aside from websites such as developer.ibm.com? Yeah, I think just Google practice coding online and you should find a number of tools. Yeah, Python is also very important in terms of machine learning and automation. Python is widely used in IBM as well, so it's really good to learn. Yeah, data analysis is also very hard because data is growing at a rapid pace. What is R? R is also again one of the languages. Yep, that's correct. It's for statistics. And I think we might move on to our next speaker. Is Craig here?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, Craig.
Let me just get some volume.
So I might just introduce you to Craig. He's a focal point in the lab for anything design, and he's hands-on on mobile app development. He leads the development and design effort for IBM Verify Mobile and the Security Developer Portal. When not coding, he's coding, reading, and streaming live music. Over to you, Craig.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I'll just get straight into it. Number one, what are your day-to-day responsibilities? Well, my late entry into the call this morning was because one of my day-to-day responsibilities is turning up to my team scrum. And they can go on for a little bit longer than anticipated. So we are always giving our manager some status updates on where things are at. My day, for example, started this morning talking to the head of design over in our Austin design labs about some bits of functionality that I'm putting into the IBM Verify mobile app. And then most of my morning is a lot of calls between my colleagues. As Scott mentioned, we've been out of the office for a year. I mean, I know Scott's back in there. Stay off my desk. We've been out for a year, so all our collaboration has been through, well, for us, it's been WebEx and Slack calls. So it's that's been really tough. to try and not necessarily get motivated with the work, but you find that you're can be constantly interrupted. So maybe your day doesn't really start until like 1 o'clock, where you got through all your calls, you've done all your scrums, America is asleep, UK is asleep, and then you might have this big flurry of activity to get on. But the responsibilities, as Tony has mentioned as well, Scott has mentioned, all around agile, and those agile methodologies mean that the things that I work on are actually placed in a story. And so I'll just pull a story off the queue. Sometimes I will spend a day just thinking about it. Like a piece of functionality I implemented yesterday. I took a day just to think about it and didn't even look at any of the code, just thinking how I'd do it. And then in the end, it took me about 20 minutes to go and do it. So yeah, and that's sort of, I'm not saying you do that, that's today, just press repeat and that's tomorrow, because tomorrow could be slightly different. But generally, that's sort of how it rolls for most of the responsibilities throughout my day. Why did I choose this role? Well, Scott and I worked really close together. We worked in the integration factory team back in the day. Hey, Scott. And I'm done. And so I never did a lot of UI work or user experience work, front-end development work, or anything like that. I always tinkered around with Windows Phone. I'm going to get sandbagged for saying that, but Windows Phone, the best mobile operating system ever. And it sort of came about when we wanted to progress into multi-factor authentication, and we had to change some server things, and we thought we'd have a client experience as well. And we went off to Austin to do a design jam over this. And I can remember this. You had all these designers and offering management, and there was Dave Moore, one of my colleagues, and myself. And I remember asking, well, who's going to build the app? And it was just like silence. And I was like, well, I'll do it. So I put my hand up to do it, and all of a sudden, I chose the role. And that's partly because I'm really interested in design. I love design. And I love to see how people can just pick up software without any guidance at all. It's kind of like the test for me is, if my mum can't use it without any guidance, then I probably haven't done a good enough job. So that's how I got into this role. And I guess I've been doing front-end dev for IBM. Well, I wouldn't say front end, I'd say full stack. Because I do web and I do design, I do mobile, I do the services as well, and bring it all together. So probably about 5 or 6 years, but it doesn't mean I haven't done previous web development type stuff. Projects I'm working on. Well, software is never finished, right? You're always enhancing it, making it better, fixing bugs, adding features, responding to customer feedback and bad reviews or whatever. So what I'm working on right now is a particular scenario where our users are actually, IBMers are actually going to be start dog fooding IBM Verify app. So we're all going to be consumers of the stuff that I've written. And they can get themselves into a situation where they might dismiss a dialogue and put their registration in the app into sort of like an orphan state. And they don't know what to do, right? From the browser experience that is out of band to the mobile experience. So how can we, in the mobile space, sort of hide aspects of things that they've done that they don't have to go and call the support desk? And that's what I was working on yesterday, and sort of recorded a video and sent it out and get some feedback. And so that's currently what I'm working on right now. In addition to that, if you've heard a technology called FIDO, Fast Identity Online, they're those little USB key fobs type things, or if you've got a MacBook, that's the touch bar, and you can use the touch bar as part of your authentication process. From a mobile perspective, the only way that you can use FIDO is if you're in a browser. And so myself and one of the architects in our lab, Shane, who is sort of kicked off our lab's FIDO path. We've been working together, and I've now built a native FIDO or WebAuthn framework. So developers don't need to launch the browser embedded inside their app. They can just use a native SDK to do that. Yeah, and so trying to, we're formalizing the documentation of that. We're presenting it to some customers and presenting it to one of our banking customers on Friday, just to give them a bit of a taste of what we're doing. So that's what I'm currently working on, and the challenges I face. I think it's been said before, and I'll just kind of repeat it. You can be really good technically, but you've got to have those soft skills to go with it. They complement you as a person and round you out. It really makes the team synergy just work if you're able to talk to your colleagues, not only at a technical level, but also at a personal level as well. And you'll have, and when I referred to before about you know, my day-to-day and working from home for 12 months and having these WebEx calls and stuff like that and Slack calls, that's all great. But I know that towards the end of, you know, like towards the end of COVID, but end of last year, some of my colleagues actually came to my house and we worked together. And we were more productive in the 3 hours that they might have been at my house than what we've been all week, just from being together. And so having a mindset where you know you're going to have to work together, you're technically competent, right? That sort of goes without saying. But it's being able to work in that team environment and envisaging the technology changes that are coming in the future as well. And just, I think that's there's some of the challenges that you kind of face, certainly from us, where IBM is sort of out there on a little bit of the bleeding edge some days. Advice for people pursuing this role. Narina said, get into hackathons. Hackathons are great, right? Because that will keep you up to date. You'll find what other teams are tooling with, what the coolest frameworks are going to be. I mean, it's quite easy to do a Google search, you know, best front-end frameworks, and you're going to end up with Angular, Vue, and React. If there's another one called, you know, dog food framework, I'd probably stay away from it because it ain't going to go anywhere, and you just got to invest your time into something that's dead. So stay sort of current with the best frameworks that will make you more employable, and get some skills under your belt. And hackathons are great like that. Because you get to meet other people and work in a team. You get to divvy up certain roles. So there's a bit of some of the agile aspects of it all. You're looking at futures, what new frameworks are coming down and how you're going to design it. You're also looking at designing it where is it fit for purpose to be for my mom. So if you're looking at trying to get in a role like this, I think hackathons and working with teams and thinking about future frameworks and how they're going to impact is probably my best advice for that. Happy to take some questions if folks have got any.
There is a question, is there any good design tricks or is it more user specific?
Good design tricks. When you say a design trick, what do you mean? it generally is a little bit more user specific. So here at IBM, we have a team of designers. They're called Carbon, right? The Carbon team. And they do everything for us in that when we're looking for a button, here's a button, here is a grid or a data table, here is an expander and everything. So IBM have already gone out and done all their usability testing, and then the designers have come back and built the components for us so we can drag them into a Sketch framework, a Sketch, which is a product where we get to wireframe everything up. And what Carbon have done is come up with some Sketch components. So we see their button, and then we go into Sketch and say, you know, drag button onto our canvas, and all of a sudden we've now got the IBM design Sketch button for us to move around and stuff like that. So they do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of how the design of buttons are going to be, and that's just the consistency across the company. IBM Security have taken it a step further, and we've sort of gone and enhanced some of those buttons to be more IBM Security theme-like. And they also have, hey, we want the data table to be like this. So part of it's like already, the stuff is already done for us, and we're just really laying it out on the screen, keeping to our patterns and everything. So there's no real big design trick there, and it is a lot of user specific depending on the feature you're trying to implement. What are your opinions about Ionic frameworks and application development? I remember when we first started out with the Verify app, it actually wasn't the app, it was more an SDK. And I remember just sitting around thinking, should I do this in Xamarin, or where I can just write one in C# and I get the benefits of iOS and Android. And then sort of similarly with the app as well. So talking about from hybrid, if you're trying to do a real rapid application development, gee, rad, I don't make say that term very much anymore. But if you're trying to do something really fast, then I think these sort of hybrid, Ionic and React Native, that type of thing, is they're really good for that. For us, we really want to leverage part of the operating system, things like the trusted platform module, the secure enclave, and some of those frameworks, they allow it, but they have a bridge, and there's always a toll. It's always a toll bridge. So we were looking for performance and also extensibility in the future, and that's why we sort of steered away from it. I think they're great if you're trying to do like hackathon type stuff and you really need to knock it out fast, and you get one development environment that will cater for both. Yeah, that's where they sort of shine for their own. But for us, we decided to go all native.
Yeah. Thanks, Craig, for being with us. And I think the key takeaways from his talk were around how he talks to lead designers and the team and the challenges associated with virtual collaboration. And his suggestions were around using MOM as your baseline user when you think of designing the UI for an app, and also improving your soft skills through hackathons and to complement your technical skills, and get used to some UI dev frameworks if you are interested in UI, becoming an app developer or an UI expert. With that, we might move on to the next session. I think I have already introduced you to Pranab. He's really friendly and happy to help always. And yeah, over to you, Pranab.
Hey, thank you, Narayana. I hope I'm audible. Hey, hello, guys. A lot of great speakers before me, and probably they have almost taken everything that I should be speaking about. So I'll just jump right in. So what is my day-to-day responsibilities?
Something's broken. It's your
So
fault.
that's my.
It's your fault. Are you gonna fix it? Are you gonna fix it right away?
I didn't write that app, Pranab.
I know, I'm sure, Craig, you had not done that, but yep. So whatever we had heard so far, so they are the, the knowledge head of writing the software for writing the applications and other bits and pieces. And the place where they stop is the place where my job role starts. So they do the development, they bring out the Lego box at the end of the day that Scott was talking about. What I do is take that Lego box from Scott. Actually, I do not work in the same project, but something similar. I take that Lego box and put it in the cloud. And then the customers, they utilize it, as the end user. And if there is a problem of the kind that I just, gave you a sample, and that was an actual alert coming to me about something failing. So ideally, right now I should be jumping on that particular thing and trying to fix that out, but I've got a team of very intelligent people that I can actually take help from today, and they would be helping me out in resolving the problem. So my day-to-day responsibilities cut across almost everything that has been talked about till now, except for the CTO's job. Well, I'm not in that line of work, not yet. So we have got a product. We have got a core product team. They do the product development. We take that particular product, put it in the cloud, but we also write a lot of code to do certain things. Those certain things may include writing an alert of the kind that I just gave you a sample about. That was written by one of our team members. I have written something similar for a lot of other failures that may happen. And these alerts are the ones they are proactive. They are not proactive, they are reactive, but they are proactive in the sense that we would come to know almost immediately about a failure, and we will be able to capture that before the customer comes to know about it. So even before the customer knows about it, we will go in, fix it, and they will be none the wiser. So they would not see a fall, fall in their performance in most of the cases. So that's what my day-to-day responsibilities are. Apart from that, I feel that I'm more of a conductor of an orchestra with a joker juggling the balls. I'm a cross of that, basically, in my role. So when we have got a very wide team, we have got a 24/7 ops kind of a thing. We have got 5 different zones that for our DevOps team. And the team previous to our zone is the Costa Rican team. So when Costa Rican team ends, we start, and then we take a handover from the Costa Rican team and then give it to the India team and the Cork team. So Cork is in Ireland, by the way. So I feel that I have got lots of funnels, on the top that gets funneled into me. A lot of requests coming in from all the sides, North America, Europe, India, and South America as well, and Australia, obviously. So they all get funneled into me, and I try to get, sort it out in whatever way possible, so that the customers get the best possible, experience, so to speak. So I've got a question. So do you have an automated fault detection system and you raise tickets instantly? Yes and no. We are still automating a lot of bits and pieces for raising the tickets. We do not have it yet, but that is on the discussions that we are having currently. So they would be happening soon, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed, because that would reduce a lot of our overhead. So I've got a team of 4, including me out here, and then we have got a team of 3 or 4 in India, many more in other zones. So I take in all those requests, which is, believe me, phenomenal in terms of the request that comes in, and we try to sort it out in terms of priority and in terms of severities, and then we try to resolve it every day. So we are an agile team, and when it comes down to writing alerts and doing other softwares or whatever we are doing for our own work, for operations work, we are we run in agile mode, but yes, we have to do a lot of shifting in between what is, high priority stuff with what is that we can that can take us backseat. So that kind of juggling keeps happening every now and then. Why did you choose this role? For this, I don't want to say the same things, but definitely I feel like Harry Potter wearing the sorting hat, and Gryffindor was chosen for me. That's what I feel like. I was looking for enhancing my career in certain ways, looking at the new technologies and stuff. And at that time, got an opportunity for this role and jumped right into it. So I like to say this to whoever I speak, we are in a very great juncture of cloud and security together. So we are a security, the product is a security application, but we are putting it in the cloud. So we are doing the best of both the worlds, security and cloud together. What are the projects that you are currently working on? So I work on only one single project only. It's called Curada on Cloud. So I am the part of the DevOps team, but I'm not on the development side of the DevOps. I'm on the production side of DevOps or operation side of DevOps. So I do a lot of work in development, don't get me wrong, but yeah, but it is a different kind of a development altogether. So it is, one of the main things that we have, and I think that would answer Tariq's question, we are trying to keep the lights open. So if there is a fault, there would be somebody on the computer trying to resolve it. Quite a few things we could do automatically, and a lot of things require human intervention. What are the challenges you face? Oh boy, okay. My worst one, or my worst nightmare, is coming online, and since we are in Australia, which is almost opposite North America, whatever maintenance happens in North America happens during when we are on. And what happens is we have the data center, the IBM cloud data center, and they would end up doing a maintenance, and the whole of the data center will go down, and there would be no access for the customers. Alerts will be all over the place, and it would be that alert that you just heard, saw, multiplied by 150 or multiplied by 250 times. It will keep on happening again and again and again and again. It's a nightmare. That is one of the worst challenges that I've seen, and we have been dealing with this every now and then. But it is what it is. Maintenances need to be done. There is no going back on that fact. So we deal with that. We go talk to the customers. We let them know what is going on so that they do not get, out. Generally, those outages are fairly small. Very seldom has it happened that it's gone into hours, 30 minutes. So that's all right. But like Chris said, our attack landscape is so vast or so wide. Customers want to be on their, on their toes all the time with respect to security, cybersecurity. So any downtime is actually not acceptable to them, right? But this is life. This is how IT products work. There has to be maintenance done, and there is no going back on board that fact. So we do get, requests from customers, or, that they're not happy about what's happened, and we have to explain it to them what's really going wrong and or what's happening. So, yeah, that would be, I would say, one of my greatest challenges that I face on a day-to-day basis. Not that it happens every day, but yeah, you get what I'm trying to say. What is your advice for the people pursuing this role? I think everyone has touched upon everything that I could possibly say. A T model, a depth and a breadth. So I feel my 22 years in the industry has put me in a very great position of knowing a lot of those. In fact, it's not a single T for me, it's a multiple, quite a few Ts. I have a depth of a lot of those things that I worked in, and I had also worked across a lot of those products and technologies. So that had put me in a very great position of doing things for the current role that I am in. Soft skills, obviously, try to explain things in easy way to the customers, which is a very, very big skill that needs to be practiced upon. People skills definitely needs to be practiced upon. One of the questions that was there initially was, can it be learned? Yes, it can be learned. It's just that you need to practice, 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 practice. The more you talk to people, the easier it will be to get into this role. What else can I touch upon? I think that's mostly it for me. If you've got any questions, you can either drop in the message or you can.
I think there are a few questions. If you can read out the question and answer.
The tool of software you are using for automatic fault detection. Okay. We are using 2 or 3 of them. Initially, we started using something called Nagios. Nagios is a monitoring tool where you can write your own scripts, which we do. And by the way, we use Python for that. That would answer some people's questions there. And now we are migrated from Nagios to something called Isinga, which is very much the similar kind of a tool, but only better. And then we have got the cloud-based monitoring tools called New Relic, but we are migrating from New Relic to Instana now. Some great products, those. The one that you heard on the phone, it's called PagerDuty. Now, PagerDuty is very much like the yesteryear pagers. I'm not sure if you guys even know about pagers, but if you look up for that, you'll get to know that it's a one-way communication. So if there is an alert that goes off, our alerting mechanism or the tool sends it to the PagerDuty server, and that pushes it out to the person who is in the DevOps role at that point of time, in that particular zone and time. So they get the alert on the phone, which is the quickest way to know about it. I would acknowledge it, and then I'll say, okay, I'm doing this or whatever, and I would leave the message and do certain things to resolve that issue. So that's for the automatic fault detection. Is this maintenance prevention? Yes and no. Yes, in the way that yes, we have to prevent it from going down. That is the truth of the matter, right? It's a production system, and we work on production systems. So obviously we need to prevent it from going down. But is it purely that? No. So apart from that, I just briefed upon on the point that we do build up systems for the customers. So we do bring up new customer systems and do a whole lot more. But yes, at the end of the day, the goal is, that we do not have the systems going down, because there is something called SLA, which is service level agreements, which is on a very, very high side for us. So we need to keep that system up all the time. Will there be any particular time limit to solve the fault? Yes. Okay. I come from a high availability background, so Narayana touched upon that. So I was experienced in working on a 5.9 system. If you do not understand 5.9, please go and have a read about it. Essentially, what it means is basically not more than 13 minutes of downtime every year. Our product, Curop, is not a 5.9 system, but it is very, very close. So we do have a better leeway in terms of maintenances, in terms of downtime, but it cannot go into multiple hours. Definitely, we have to solve it within the time limits, but there are chances that it may not happen. In the course of 3 years, I think I had chanced upon only 2 times when we were not able to solve the problem within the stipulated time, where we were needed to solve it and bring the system up. And that was purely because of the number of things that happened that went wrong, which was beyond our control. And there was one instance where the entire data center was flooded with water. So the whole data center was brought down. So there was no way we could have got the systems up and running because the power was switched off in the data center. So, yep.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Pranab.
Hey.
I think to summarize, Pranab explained the need for DevOps and particularly ops in which he's working, and he has to catch up consistently with multiple issues which come from multiple geographies. And he also spoke about the importance of soft skills and multiple T's. I hope that was very insightful, and we'll move on to the next speaker, Holly. And I think I have already introduced Holly, but she's an inspiration to a lot of women in tech. And she has been aspirational and presents at conferences, writes articles on LinkedIn, and quite does a lot of outreach as well. Over to you, Holly.
Thank you. That's a lovely introduction. Okay, so I will talk a little bit. I've only been at IBM for 5 years, so I think out of the group of presenters today, I'm the newest out of university. So I might talk a little bit about that pathway as well. How did I end up in IBM and how did I end up where I am? So I went to UQ. I actually studied a Bachelor of Engineering majoring in mechatronics, which was actually mentioned earlier. And in that there was a little bit of coding. So one of the earlier questions today was around, I'm doing a degree in robotics and Internet of Things. I'm sure many of you are doing, not necessarily cybersecurity. You might be doing IT, you might be doing something sort of adjacent to that. And I think the really important thing to note is there isn't just one pathway into cybersecurity. So for me, I had a little bit of software in my degree, and that was enough to get me the internship. And so I did an internship over a period of a year with IBM. I'd done a few others at university, but the one at IBM really taught me a lot of different skills, not just about cybersecurity, because I'd never done anything to do with cybersecurity before. So there was a lot of learning as part of that process. But even, people asking questions about what coding language should I focus on? For me, once I started the internship, there was maybe 5 different languages that I'd started using as part of that process. And it really becomes not so much about how well do you know a language already, but how well can you adapt the coding skills that you already have to a different language, and how can you Google? I saw a really good picture the other day of like somebody who was like, oh, I'm a professional software engineer, and then you take the mask off and actually they're just a professional Googler, which is kind of true. So I think that's really important, is get comfortable with software practices and software frameworks, and then you can adapt those skills. So I did the internship. I started as a graduate, and when I was hired as a graduate, that was as an engineer. So I was doing essentially back-end development for Curator, which is the product Pranab just spoke about. And that product detects threats in an environment. The whole purpose of that is to look at all of the traffic and all of the communication and say, there's a cyber attack going on, detect that automatically and raise an alert so somebody can go and investigate that further. So my job was, as a developer in that, building new features, fixing bugs. We actually got given a component that was like over 20 years old. So that code was C++ and it was old. So there was a lot of work we did just in building tests around it. So we were using, C++, Python. Some of the other code was Java. We'd be editing make files. There's lots and lots of different skills that we had to have as part of that role. So that sort of continued on for a few years. As part of that, I guess I tried to take on more and more responsibility in that. And one of the opportunities that's actually quite unique. So IBM holds these conferences called masterclasses, and they actually fly developers. So the people building the products out to different places around the world. There's one in Europe, there's one in America, there's one in Singapore, and they will fly the actual engineers out who build the product to go and talk to the customers and to present to the customers, this is what we built this year. This is what's coming out in the future. Here's some tips and tricks to make your system run better. So doing a few of those things, you start to understand some of the client problems, and then you're trying to bring those client problems back into the development work you're doing. So that kind of went on for a few years. Eventually, I was given the role of product owner for this component. So what that means is, you know, there is, I think within the whole product, there's maybe 20 product owners worldwide, spread out across, you know, Canada and the States and all over the world. And we're all responsible for particular portions of Curator. So Curator is the thing that detects the threats. There's lots of parts that make up the overall product, and we each own a part of that. So day to day, my responsibility as a product owner is primarily to work out what we're going to work on next. So that's working with offering management, who talks to the customers and who understands what the market's doing. They're sort of more business facing. They will ask you for the world, and then there's only so much you have, so much capability you have with the engineers that you sort of have allocated to you. So for my team, I can only do a certain amount of work, and it's my job to take what our offering manager wants, the glorious solution that solves all the world's problems, and how many people I have available to actually go and build that. And then I go and prioritize, you know, what's most important, what are we going to work on next? That's sort of the primary job role, but then there are all sorts of other things that come up as well. So, you know, if there's a customer who has a critical issue and the support team can't work out what's wrong, they'll come back to me and I'll go and investigate it further. There's presenting, there's a lot of doing this sort of stuff. So I'm really passionate about outreach and getting more people into cybersecurity and just understanding what cybersecurity is like. So there's a bit of that mixed in there. And then looking forward, so for my career, the next step is really taking on more of the architecture work. So, you know, I'm still doing my engineering role and my product owner role for the Curator Flows portion, but there's actually a machine learning project which has come about in the last year or so. And because I was interested in sort of thinking about what the future of our product will look like, I was taking on, and I was interested in those discussions about this machine learning project, and that's evolved into sort of a team lead sort of architecture role for that project. So I've kind of got two major balls in the air at the moment, but that's the way it works. You know, when we're talking about how did you choose this role, that's the way it usually happens. You'll be part of a conversation where you had a particular interest in some specialty, and because of that, if you're willing to take on more responsibility and to help out in these projects, your role sort of adapts and shapes itself to whatever work you're taking on, whatever projects you're helping out on. So projects I'm currently working on are the Curator project, but also this machine learning project. And with that, particularly with the second one, you know, some of the larger challenges are working across time zones. So we spoke earlier about the fact that, you know, global company means you're working with global teams. Right now I'm working with people in Israel, people in Taipei, people in the US, and people in Canada. Also occasionally a few people in Europe. So trying to find any time at all when we're all awake and happy to have a meeting is an absolute headache. So often what you end up doing is having to have, say, 2 meetings, which are kind of similar, and you're trying to relay all of the same information to make sure everybody's on the same page and we're all sort of heading in the same direction. But that's also exciting, you know, the fact that I am actually working with people all around the globe to build something that's going to be really impressive and is going to, you know, make a big difference for our clients. That's also really cool. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges that we face at the moment. What's your advice for people pursuing this role? So I guess, you know, everybody's had similar points around this so far. One thing that's a little bit different, I suppose, just to give a little bit of a broader opinion on this, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying around when you're in university, get involved in the hackathons, get involved with as much as you can, but also, want to continue this once you start as a professional hire. Once you start working full time, the same concepts apply. And I think, you know, it's really important to understand that even though you might be the newest person on the team, you inherently have a different perspective to what everybody else on that team has. And it's really important that even if you don't feel like you completely understand the subject matter, even if you don't know the history, you don't know everything that's been spoken about before, it's still really important to speak up and share your opinions on it, or ask questions to get clarity, because, you know, especially if you've done a degree that's a little bit different, you've done a degree specializing in Internet of Things, most people on that team wouldn't have worked with Internet of Things in the level of detail that you might have. So either asking those questions or raising those opinions, don't underestimate how important that is and how much value you can bring to a team doing that. And similarly, you know, raise those opinions, but also get involved in as many different activities as you can within the organization as well. So hackathons will probably happen at most companies you go to, but also, even if there's no outreach programs going originally, like you've got contacts back at your university, most likely, keep those contacts alive, start your own outreach events. You know, there's lots of things you can do to sort of branch out and get involved in the broader community. And those sort of things become really useful as you go down further and further down your career. You know, all of those things become almost necessary for you to progress at a certain point. You have to show that you're passionate about the industry and that you're giving back to the community as well. So all those things are always really, really useful to continue even after you get your dream job. So I think that's pretty much it for what I wanted to speak about.
Thank you, Holly. There is a question for you in the chat. What's the main boundary for getting into IT field as a woman?
I think there's so many opportunities for females in technology now, which is awesome. I think half of the battle is finding the place that feels right for you. And often that means, you know, finding somewhere where you also have female role models in the company or in the career path that you want to go down. And you know, feeling supported. So it doesn't, female role models is really good because it helps you visualize where you want to go. It helps you see yourself potentially in a future position. But also you want that support network as well. So being in an environment where you feel like the people around you support you and champion you as well. I think the fact that all of you are even part of this discussion shows that you're all interested in pursuing your careers and supporting each other and being part of the community. So I think that's a really good sign. But yeah, I think it's really important that we support females in the industry and support them to progress their careers.
How important is innovation in your field of work?
Super important. So a few times patents have been mentioned. So patents are probably the most financially measurable outcome of innovation that IBM has, and IBM has a huge emphasis on patents. So for us as developers, the company has made it super easy for us to file a patent and then have that go through and you know, show up in Google patents one day. And that's, you know, one form of innovation, but the other is more subtle, I suppose. And it's about when you're trying to build a product or you're trying to, you know, work on one of the scenarios that Scott mentioned earlier. If there's something my offering manager is looking for, it's about taking what you have already, which is potentially old and crappy, and working out what the best way to enhance it and to satisfy the customer requirements is. And that takes a lot of innovation to do that in a way that's performant, in a way that is intuitive. So we're taking like the user experience into consideration. You know, there's a lot of ways to innovate, and a lot of them are absolutely vital to making sure you build good products. How do we apply for internships at IBM? So IBM has a careers website, which every internship, every graduate role, every full-time role will be posted on there. So if you just Google IBM careers, or we can put it in the chat, you can always look on there. The other thing is, you know, the internships only open up at certain times of year. So I think we'll be opening them, you know, it all depends on what happens with COVID and whatnot, but usually around July is when we open them. So you can always reach out to somebody on this call and we can go and follow up and find out when they're opening and where you'll go to apply. How does it feel to be a product owner? So when I first started as a product owner, when I first got the, you know, here's your piece of paper, you are now a product owner, there's probably a few days or maybe a week where I was really scared. I was like, the title sounds super fancy, and, you know, what if there's something that comes up that I don't know how to deal with, or, you know, just a fear, I guess, of the unknown. But that pretty quickly disappeared because I realized it was already the stuff I'd been doing. And that's the whole evolution of your career. You know, you're already taking on those responsibilities. You're already fighting those fires before you get the title of product owner. So for me, you know, it wasn't much different to what I was doing previously, except, you know, previously as an engineer, you're focusing on maybe 1 or 2 tasks and you're, you know, hands on keyboard the whole time until it's completed. Whereas I guess the shift for product owner was, okay, I'm not necessarily, I'm focusing on more things at once, right? I might be doing hands on keyboard for a couple of things, but I'm also thinking more broadly about everything that's going on. I'm thinking about, okay, well, if I'm giving one of my engineers advice about how to solve this, I want it to align with this other big item I know is coming up in the future. So it's about sort of broadening your context and anticipating what the future will be, not just what this task is. So product owner is involved with the customer more than the case scenario owner, right? So no, I would say they're probably about the same. So in both cases, we're taking customer requirements, either from talking directly to a customer, which will happen sometimes, but usually it happens via offering management, who is an IBMer who goes and talks to the customers. And the reason for that is the offering manager, it's their role to talk to lots of customers, collate that feedback, look at what the market's doing, collate that feedback, and they're relaying sort of the strategy and the direction that we want to go to from a central place. But often, you know, part of the agile process and part of the work we're trying to do around building good products is getting customer feedback early. And those are more the scenarios where I will have like a prototype or a proof of concept of a particular product that we're building, and I'll take that directly to a customer to get feedback. And so in those scenarios, that's when we get the direct feedback from customers.
Yeah, I think I might summarize the session and then we can have a few minutes for any questions that the audience have. So we had some great sessions today, and we had our Chris Hawkins, the CTO, speak about his role, and then we had a manager, Tony, and we had an architect, Scott, and we had Scrum Master, Aman, and myself, developer, Craig, UI and mobile app development, and we had Pranab, DevOps, and Holly, product owner. I think you might have got a lot of insights on different roles, and these are just 8 roles within IBM, but there are like hundreds of different roles. Like we haven't even touched based on sales or marketing. This is mainly around engineering, but there are like many different roles, but you get the picture, right? And yeah, I think we can open up for questions now. I saw one last question there. What are the perspectives on testing a product in aspects of security? Who wants to take it? Anyone from IBM?
I think I can probably quickly run through that. So in some ways it's much the same as, there's different layers. So the first layer would be your normal sort of quality assurance testing. If you're building a feature, make sure the feature works. That's more the same as what it would be for any software product. So you'll have your unit tests, your component tests, you might have some automated tests and that sort of thing. Now that's the software part of it. Then there's the cybersecurity specific testing, and there's jobs out there for people who, you know, you hear them called ethical hackers or penetration testers, but they are people who are hired to try to break stuff. So that's where maybe the more specific security testing comes into play, where there are people who will take your product that you developed and they will be trying to break it and they'll be trying to hack into it. There's also things we have where before we can merge anything into production, there are cybersecurity checklists to make sure that we're not doing anything obviously really silly in terms of the products that we're releasing. And I'll also just quickly give us an example of who might be the customer, just because I think that was related to the part I was talking about earlier. We have so many different customers. We can't tell specific names, usually unless we get their permission to talk about them specifically, but it's, you know, it's banks, it's telcos, it's government. There are so many different customers all around the world who we might be working with to show them prototypes.
I would like to get some feedback from the students if they're interested, so they can just switch on their videos now and comment about the session. Feel free to switch on your videos now.
Thank you all. It's really helpful with everything. I just have a question around the internships. Like, is there anything that we can do to sort of stand out from the crowd, or sort of like in the applying of internships, I suppose?
I think that's a great question. It's like this, right? Whenever we are part of an curriculum or you are part of a class, everyone from your class will have similar profile, right? In terms of what you learned in the classroom and the assignments. So how do you differentiate yourself? So think about what additional things you would like to do, like what new things you would like to explore, and what have you done? Have you contributed to some open source projects, or have you been doing a lot of side projects? Are you trying to stay up to date with what's happening with, and are you taking an initiative in attending some conferences to learn something out of it? Are you attending meetups and webinars? And yeah, I would say side projects would really help and show that you have the motivation to go out beyond what you learn from the curriculum and do something in a team. And contributing to open source would be the best thing, I would say, because the interviewer would know what kind of code you did. They have a chance to review your code, and that's a way to prove yourself, right? It's like a credential for you that, yes, I understand this project and I have contributed in a meaningful way, and this is the code I have written. I'm following code quality guidelines. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Cool.
One other thing I'll add to that is, and it's the same with resumes and cover letters and stuff, if you can tailor your knowledge to the particular thing you're applying for. So in our case, you know, it might be learning a little bit about the products that are in the lab. And so that way, when you come to the interview, it shows that you actually have an interest in what our lab does, and you're already sort of one step ahead in terms of catching up on what the internship would require you to learn.
And please do join the industry mentoring program, which is a great way to interact with your mentor who's from the industry and has real experience on what the industry expects and what they do as part of their role. And they might even give you various guidance on how to prepare for an interview or how to have an impressive CV, because the job market is, you'll always have less number of jobs when compared to the number of applicants. So it makes it hard for the reviewer or the HR person to shortlist CVs. He will have a very limited bandwidth of time to shortlist. So he will be essentially looking for keywords or achievements. So you really need to be part of any of these mentoring programs, and that's a good way. You'll have some quality time with your mentor. They have all been through the same journey, right? So they will be able to help you out.
There was also a question there about, can you give more details about free web conferences you mentioned during your session?
I think at least IBM developer.ibm.com has got a few conferences. I think they are free to the best of my knowledge. And there are conferences on hybrid cloud or AI or a lot of interesting areas. Just check it out. And definitely there are these certificate programs by IBM within Coursera or Udemy or directly through cognitive.ai. Some of them are, I think most of them might be free. Check it out. And yeah, it's important you at least have a basic understanding of some of these trending technologies like AI and blockchain and things like that. And then go deep in one particular technology, for example, cybersecurity.
I think that's all the questions that there are today. Do we want to wrap things up?
Yeah.
I'll hand it over to Nicole, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so just wrapping up from here. Sorry, I'm trying to share the slideshow, but it won't share. There we go. Hopefully that'll do it. So I really wanted to just summarize from my end and say what an amazing sequence of presenters that we had, and to really express our gratitude from Griffith University. It was so exciting to hear about the diversity in roles, even within the one organization. And to hear Narayana, you saying that, look, we've just profiled 8 roles today and there are literally hundreds, and such an exciting time for people entering this industry now. Another thing that I really took away was that balance between technical skills and enterprise skills, and how important that was in advancing into the different kinds of roles, and how the different roles make use of that in different ways. So that was really exciting as well. And the third takeaway I thought was super exciting was how many opportunities there are for students to just get in and have a go, and to kind of start really early on from building that portfolio of experience, and how open the access is to those kind of career building experiences. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, as well as all of your expertise and the inside track into each one of your roles. To access more great information like this, I would just like to put a plug in for the Griffith Industry Mentoring Program. As we stated, Holly and Narayana are mentors in the program, along with some of their equally amazing IBM colleagues. This program is amazing at helping you develop your career, expanding your network, and building confidence. Our registrations are open now for T2, so jump online and make that happen. And then we have a couple of events coming up. Our Mentoring on the Move session on the Gold Coast campus will be happening shortly. So we'll be sending out an announcement to everyone about that. And then later today, if you are interested in the topic of data analytics, we are hosting our monthly Industry Insight series. Data analytics in the business process is our topic for March. So join us for that if you can. Thanks once again to everyone online, to IBM for being so generous with all of your time. Thank you to the audience for your engagement and your amazing questions. Really appreciate everyone's participation today. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. I'm glad my mentee is here as well, Karthik. So.
Well done, Karthik. So Brita, you're on mute.
Yes, sorry. I will make a recording available to everybody that has signed up to this event after once I end the session and once it's spooled. I don't know if that's the technical term, IBMers, but that's what I'm using. So that will be available to everybody soon. So if you have missed a section, or if you want to grab the names again of those that have presented, if you want to connect with them on LinkedIn, just check out the recording that's coming through, and do share this information with your colleagues. Word of mouth is definitely the best promotion for everybody, for the program and for events like these that we try and host throughout the year. So thank you again. Thank you for your lively questions. Thanks, Anthony, for speaking up there. I really appreciated that. And have a lovely afternoon, everybody. And it's lovely to see the sunshine at last. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We would appreciate some feedback later on from the students who attended, so we can improve our speaking skills probably. Thank you.
No improvement needed. Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks.